Okay, folks, we'll now turn to the final event at this American Studies Festival, which will be in basically two parts. First, we're going to have the awards ceremony in just a moment, and after that, we're going to have three student presentations. But let's start with the awards ceremony, which will be presided over by Philip Assis, who's the cultural attaché of the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen. Thank you.
Thank you. The moment we've all been waiting for on the awards. I just wanted to give a few, before we get to the awards, I just wanted to give a few remarks on behalf of being here on behalf of the U.S. Embassy, who's been a longtime partner and supporter of this program and these awards and this lecture. So first of all, speaking for myself, it is an absolute honor to be here. This is to the 2024 American Studies Festival. This is my third time at this festival since moving to Denmark. There's a very personal connection for me to be here with you for three reasons. First and foremost is, of course, because of the keynote lecture, which is the Renora Honora Galloway lecture, which of course was given this year by Dr. Shelley Fisher-Fisken. That lecture and this program was named after my predecessor. So I have her exact position. It's a different title today, but she came before me and of course passed away in 1994. So I'm here also in her memory. And the second reason is because I'm the only American diplomat currently in Denmark with Danish heritage. So my father is from Brazil, but my mother is American born to Danish immigrants. It's been very special for me to be a part of this program with you because you represent a foundation of that, a part of that foundation of connecting Danes and Americans. And it's been it's one of the many reasons that I pushed to be assigned here to Denmark. And my Danish, the parts of my family that remained here in Denmark have grown from distant family to close family. A few of them even graduated from the University of Southern Denmark. And the third reason that this is special for me, is very personal for me, is because, as you may know, career diplomats, of which I am one, are required to leave or to rotate to a different U.S. embassy or back to headquarters in Washington every 3 years. And my time is coming to an end, so I will be rotating out this coming summer after 3 years in Denmark. So this is my final American Studies Festival, at least in this capacity, but of course I do plan to come back and visit. I was here, of course, just a few weeks ago with many of you on election night, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the energy and the excitement, and the quiz was amazing. I was amazed at how much everyone knew. But I know that it's still heavily on everyone's minds. Everyone's still talking about the elections, and I know that there's a lot to sort through, and everyone is thinking about it. So I do at least want to offer a positive note on it. Democracy everywhere is fragile and requires attention. It requires an engaged electorate. And in this latest election, the United States saw one of the largest voter turnouts in history. It was eclipsed only by the 2020 election. That election was the highest voter turnout since 1901. So in some states, like some swing states like Wisconsin, the voter rate approached that of Denmark, which for the United States is exceptional. Or again, using that word exceptional. Or I should say it's a record. So this is a sign of vibrancy of democracy in the United States, and it shows how seriously our citizenry takes the opportunity of elections to have their voices heard. And we also, of course, saw vigorous public debate on issues and a wide range of news and opinions. And the freedom of expression and diversity of opinion reflect our values and our strengths. Looking ahead, of course, I recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty, and I cannot make predictions, but I can leave you with this. First, the peaceful transition of power is an essential element of our democracy that's vital to our nation's security. And that's why it's so important for us to conduct a smooth, efficient, and professional transition process. The president-elect and the transition team are working now to ensure that smooth transition of power. Second, both the United States and our alliances are always evolving. As you know better than anyone, Denmark and the United States have a strong established relationship that goes back to 1801 when we formally established diplomatic relations. So no matter what comes, I do not see the bonds of friendship, trade, security, or research breaking. The US and its partners, including Denmark, will weather the uncertainties that invariably accompany the democratic political process. As for what's next, in the immediate future, President Biden remains in office until January 20th and has made clear that he and Secretary of State, which of course is who I ultimately report to, intend to remain fully active across the full range of domestic and foreign policy issues. So that includes cementing our work in maintaining a free, open, prosperous Indo-Pacific and ensuring that we continue to win the competition we're engaged in with China while responsibly managing the relationship between our two countries. Ensuring that Ukraine is in the best possible position for success and bringing an end to the fighting in Lebanon and Gaza while improving the delivery of humanitarian assistance, securing the release of all hostages, and preventing a further spread of conflict in the Middle East. So let me close where I began with the noise out of the way. Let me repeat again that you are part of the foundation between the United States and the Kingdom of Denmark, part of the friendship. Friends don't always agree with each other, but they talk to each other and they aim to understand where they are coming from. And that's especially true for longtime close friends. I appreciate that optimism is a part of my American identity, and I remain optimistic about Danish-American connections, especially about the scholarly knowledge of those connections that come from the Center for American Studies. So thank you. And now, let's turn to the awards. The first award goes to the BA student, and this goes to a fantastic student who has been a consistent, active part of the program from day one. She writes brilliant papers. In class, she's always made her presence felt in a very constructive and positive way. And she's an active member of the DSAAS, which of course sponsored the election night that I came to a couple weeks ago. But not only that, she's one of the students who will be making a presentation today, which I'm looking forward to. And the award goes to, drum roll please, thank you, Camilla Gudmundsson Holgren. If I said it correctly somewhat. Camilla? Oh, right. And here we go. And Camilla and I both, by the way, as you already heard me say, and you probably know about Camilla, we're both Brazilian. Not a vein. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, sure. Say something. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to put this down. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Thank you to Philip for that sweet introduction. Yeah, that was really funny. Just a few hours ago, we kind of realized that we have pretty much the exact same heritage. My mother is Danish, my father is Brazilian. Yeah. Half and half. Yeah. It's a rarity. Yeah, we're a rare bunch. Yeah. And well, I am incredibly moved and honored to receive this award. And I want to thank, aside from Philip, the American Embassy. I think that this relationship, this close relationship that the American Embassy has with our program here, American Studies, is really something quite special. And I'm grateful for the opportunities it provides, like sponsoring this American Studies Festival every year and the election night and other events. So that's just wonderful. So thank you. And then I want to say something to the professors, because the fact that this award is chosen or nominated by the professors is, yeah, just makes it all the more special to me, because our professors here at American Studies, as you probably all already know, they are just the best of the best. um, yeah, I love learning from every single one of you, and your teaching and your engagement. It just reignites my passion for this area of study time and time again. And you've just been really sweet and supportive and helpful. When I first started first semester, I was struggling a little bit, sort of adapting to academic life and writing papers, and had some medical stuff going on, that just a lot of stress. And, you know, the professors were just always there to help and support along the way. So I'm really grateful for that. And I just hope that I'm able to continue to live up to this honor. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Camila. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, and now the MA Student Award. This award goes to a wonderful, very engaged student. I think you're seeing a trend here. Someone who is very consistent and always participates in class. He's also an active member of DSAAS and helped organize a wonderful Thanksgiving. For his exam in Communicating American Studies, he delivered a product and presentation that absolutely blew the examiners away. Both Jan and Sabine agreed in their deliberation that if the 13-point grade scale had still existed, he would have received a 13. This award goes to Fredrik Nuge Nuren.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Frederick, and I'm a second-year student in the master's. I'm very grateful for this award, and I'm happy to be a part of the community here at SDU. Throughout my degree, I've had the chance to engage with a combination of literature, cultural studies, history, politics, and much more. It was the interdisciplinary, comprehensive scope of the American Studies degree that prompted me to continue my university education here. Originally, I had studied history at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, but I decided to move back to Odense here. And I'm definitely confident that I made the right choice to come here. The enthusiasm and knowledge that both the students and faculty has shown has undoubtedly encouraged me to pursue my own academic interests. I've gotten amazing opportunities to study everything from science fiction to international relations. And I would say the freedom to pursue one's own academic interests is something that deeply characterizes American studies here at SDU. And this is something that I and many other students deeply appreciate. Lastly, I want to say thank you to the American Embassy, the faculty at the Center for American Studies, and to my fellow students for this award. I wish you all the very best of luck in your studies and in your work. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you to Frederik and Camilla. Congratulations on the awards. Thank you to Philip for presenting and for giving that great speech. We will miss you next year, but you are always invited back whenever. And thanks to the embassy for sponsoring the award as well. Coming up, we have student presentations. We just need to set up a microphone for our first presenter, which will be Joanna Beres. Come on up.
When we test out sound, say something.
All right, I'm saying something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Can you say something?
I already did. It's working.
It's working.
Yes.
All right.
Presenter. Okay, wonderful.
It's working. All right.
Great, wonderful. Hi, everybody. I'm very, very excited to be talking to you all about my BA thesis that I wrote in 2021 about the history and treatment of gay players in the NFL. Now, this is a little bit of an older thesis, so a lot of things have gone down since. So I took the liberty to add those little tidbits into this presentation just so that we're all up to date with all of it. So a lot of the times, the first question that people asked me when we discussed who wrote their thesis about what was, why this topic? Because frankly, when you look at me, a 5'3" blonde, incredibly girly girl, you wouldn't think that the words gay NFL player would come out of my mouth. Alas, they did. And I wanted to share the 4 most important reasons why I chose this topic, as well as the methodology behind my research. So I thought the phenomenon of celebrity and how we as the general public feel entitled to incredibly personal information about famous people was a very, very interesting aspect of this. Especially because in the past couple of decades, we've seen a rise in the popularity of LGBTQ identifying athletes coming out publicly as active players of major sports leagues in the Olympics, and not just in the US, but globally. And I was also very much intrigued about how toxic masculinity is a very interesting concept would rear its ugly head in this topic, if it does at all. Spoiler, it does. Especially because it's a very polarizing topic and concept, especially if we look at the recent elections. My 4th very important reason was the fact that American football is watched by over 50% of all of the US population. It is the favorite pastime sport in America. And even if those who don't watch it, they've at least heard about the Super Bowl, which is, it brings everyone together. I mean, they have headliners like Rihanna, Kendrick Lamar. For maybe the older audience members, the Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson incident might be familiar. And Whitney Houston, of course, amongst many. So even if you don't watch the sport, you've at least heard of it. And it might be an intriguing concept. My methodology was I read a lot of autobiographies, biographies, and just books about the NFL. I wanted to collect anecdotal evidence supported by former players or even active players about their experiences during their time in the organization. And I also examined historical evidence to see how masculinity is brought into all of this. And I spent many agonizing hours comparing statistics about different major sports leagues out and about players in comparison to the NFL. So the 4 key concepts that I identified was traditional masculinity. What is masculinity in the traditional sense? What does it mean? And how does it become toxic? The second one was the NFL. What has the organization done to support or suppress gay players' presence? Other sports, gay athletes, is the third one that I identified. Why are there so many in other sports, but not so many in American football? And then the last one was future prospects. What are we looking at? How has the organization and public perception and support improved, if at all? So to introduce masculinity in America, I have a checklist for you. All of these stem from Puritan times, actually, because those people loved their Bibles. They lived by the Bible, they swore by the Bible, and they based all of their gender roles around what the Bible dictated. And we still have these present in what masculinity means in America. So while we go down this checklist, I want you to imagine a very stereotypical American football player. He has to be morally and physically strong, right? Like at least 5'2", 250 pounds, right? Respected, admired, and well-liked amongst his peers. He has to be the unquestioned ruler of the family, and in this case, if they're a quarterback, the family. And he has to be adventurous and a risk taker. And that, of course, culminates in playing one of the most brutal and aggressive sports that there is. Now, all of these do not really go well with tolerating feminine traits, which are usually represented by the stereotypical effeminate gay man. And as such, the two don't pair together. So when you try to contrast these two concepts, you might be in trouble. And a lot of people thought that they would be in trouble with this concept as well. I want to talk about two very important firsts in the NFL. One of them is David Kopay. He was the first ever NFL player to come out as gay after he retired in 1975, so almost 50 years ago now. And he came out after retirement, right? Because he did not feel comfortable enough to come out while he was still playing. But before he came out publicly, he came out privately to his coach. And while he was somewhat well received after his coming out, he, in his autobiographical book, said he believes he was snubbed from a coaching position later on in the NFL because his homosexuality was not really tolerated. He also said that he had a brief affair with a fellow player in the Washington Redskins, now known as the Commandeers, Jerry Smith. Jerry Smith died in 1986 from AIDS complications, and he was never able to come out and tell the world who he really was and how he loved David Kopay back in the day. The second biggest first in the NFL's history was Carl Nassib. He's more contemporary to us. He was born in 1993, so he's 31 years old, still very young, and he was the first active contracted player to come out in the history of the NFL. 45 years between these two men. 45, that's a long time. His coming out was received well, incredibly well, by his peers, by higher-ups and coaches in the NFL, and by the general public as well. He came out during Pride Month in 2021, so it was very, very recent. Actually, I was already researching for this paper when he made this announcement, so it was a welcome addition to my paper. And it was surprising for people that he came out because while he was a collegiate player, he was already incredibly accomplished in all sense. He was given countless awards, countless recognitions. So in every way, he represented the ideal NFL player, and none were the wiser, really. He retired in 2023, about a year ago. And he said the reason for his retirement was that he wanted to focus on his own company, Raise, but many speculated that maybe the reason was not exactly this. Maybe the reason was that the NFL still wasn't, and maybe isn't still ready for an active gay player to play on their fields. On to the NFL itself as an organization. How do they approach this topic, and how have they approached this topic in the last about 50 years? So Vince Lombardi, one of the most famous NFL coaches, was the coach to Dave Kopay, and he was the coach that he came out to first privately, and he was very much supportive of Kopay's coming out for a personal reason. He himself had a gay brother. He was heavily criticized for his support of Dave Kopay. No one really understood how he could support someone like him, because back in the 70s, the situation wasn't really what it is today. I mean, today is very, very natural when someone tells you, by the way, I love the same gender as myself, behind closed doors. First of all, it's none of our business, but even if they tell you, it's not that big of a surprise anymore because it's become so normalized. Toxic locker room culture was the very, very key thing where I was able to identify toxic masculinity. Locker room culture is usually described as something where the men feel very, very comfortable sharing unspeakable sentences, ideas, and behaviors with each other because they can do it in the comfort of the knowledge that it will never come out. It does come out. So these behaviors eventually ended up coming out and anecdoted by a lot of people. This, of course, led to the revealing of derogatory comments and the use of slurs by fellow athletes and by coaches as well. When Nassib came out, he was a player of the Las Vegas Raiders, and the very coach, John Gruden, was caught in an email trail using the F word and berating the Rams coach for drafting Michael Sam previously. The lack of public support for others before Nassib was also very prevalent. No one really spoke out about it. No one was really supportive of other players, even if they had come out after retirement. And most of these also culminated in the fact that many of them said the reason why they never came out while they were actively playing in the NFL was because they were afraid of retaliation and losing their jobs. These players usually get paid millions and millions of dollars. They single-handedly are able to support not only their immediate, but their extended families if need be. These are incredible career opportunities. Imagine losing out on a job like this just because you want to be honest with people. Just to highlight how bad this really was, I want to share with you a quote from Wade Davis Jr. in an interview that he gave for the NPR. When he was asked or posed the question, "You've described your time playing in the NFL as a feeling like you had schizophrenia." He said the following, "I remember thinking, God, I am walking gay. I remember thinking I'm standing gay. And I remember thinking, God, like I'm running gay. And when you're supposed to be in the film room thinking about how to get better, I'm thinking so desperately that I hope no one watching can see me the way that I believe that I see me." It's disturbing to hear that someone likens their experience playing professional sports to having schizophrenia, a very real mental disorder. Even worse came more testimonies from, I wanted to highlight 3 other players by name. Ezra Tualo, also known as Mr. Aloha. He retired in 1999, came out 3 years after his retirement in 2002, and he gave an interview to HBO's Real Sports. That's where he came out. And in this interview, he said that he became a womanizer. He had sex with a different woman every single night because he was so afraid other people would find out about his sexuality. He wanted to do everything to avoid even the speculation. It was not only damaging for him physically, but also mentally. I mean, imagine having to force yourself to be in the presence of someone you don't really want to be with. Michael Sam was a notable player in this aspect as well. He was drafted by the St. Louis Rams. He signed the contract, but later on he was released before the season even began because the NFL wasn't quite ready for him just yet. Dorian Bryant is the third name that I would like to highlight and mention. He was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, but he wasn't ready to sign the contract because he was afraid for his life. Other players also mentioned that they toyed with the idea of suicide. It's really, really severe. Other gay athletes in other sports maybe had a little bit of a better position, especially when we talk about the women. This is where the statistics comes out. I know we're in humanities. I'm not going to bore you long. In the WNBA, we currently have 42 out and proud lesbian basketball players. It's a very high number, no? It's great, it's wonderful. They even have 1 transgender player and a lot of gender nonconforming players who use they them pronouns. It's very progressive, in my opinion. So much so that they also count 8 out and about gay men in the NBA. So that's also a high number compared to the 1 singular active player that the NFL has had in the list of 35 people altogether. I mean, 34 who have come out after retirement and only 1 who played as a gay man. That's shocking. The first man in the NBA to come out was Jason Collins in 2013. And President Obama congratulated him on his bravery. So he was very much revered for his bravery and for living up to who he really was. The statistic also shows that maybe the reason why we have so much more women playing as lesbian athletes is because homophobia anecdotally persecutes lesbians less than gay men. They're more tolerated, if I may use the word in this way. So, but still, this is a very great number, and hopefully it will just grow with time. But just to, not end this on a very sad note, I wanted to highlight some positive changes in the NFL's history. After Carl Nassib came out in 2021, he jointly pledged $200,000 to the Trevor Project, a very notable organization that supports LGBTQ identifying youth from suicide hotline to counseling. And they are now actively advocating for greater inclusivity. Notable people in the NFL, like big names, such as Saquon Barkley, Rob Gronkowski, the Gronk, and Julian Edelman were very vocally supporting Carl Nassib after he came out. In 2017, the Rams were the first to sponsor a pride event. In the picture, you can see the Venice sign in Venice Beach, California. These are made up of tiny little light bulbs. And the reason why it's rainbow colored is because in June, during Pride Month, it's always rainbow colored in show of support. In 2017, the Rams bought all of the light bulbs in the letter C. And later on, the LA Chargers bought the N, therefore pledging thousands and thousands of dollars in support of Pride. In 2002, the National Gay Flag Football League was founded by Sid Zeigler, and the copy-paste of the Super Bowl, the Gay Bowl, also is very much present. And not only do former NFL athletes who have since come out play and coach in the NGFFL, but for example, the New England Patriots and the Celtics and the Bruins also pledged hundreds of thousands of dollars in support of this organization and gay American football players. So I think in conclusion, we can say that while the history of the organization and how it treated its gay players is not spotless by any means, they've made incredible progress. And I can just hope that Carl Nassib was not just a one-hit wonder for the NFL, that he was not the only person with this sort of bravery, that we will see more brave people come out and play as out and proud players. And there is always room for improvement and for hope. Thank you so much for the attention.
No Q&A? No. All right, thank you so much, Joanna. Wonderful presentation. Our next presenter is also that's you. Is also this year's recipient of the BA Award. Please welcome Camilla Holmgren, who will talk about, let me just see, Hollywood transformation. Oh, my PowerPoint's too slow. Hollywood's transformation. Okay, so I could have just ended there. Excellent. Let's just get you hooked up here. So.
Oh.
So.
No.
Let him dig. You have pockets? Put in your pocket. You all say something?
Okay, testing.
All right.
Testing.
Right.
And how does this work? Oh, it's just, it looks different than what I'm used to.
You're a Mac user.
Yeah,
You actually just push the arrow down and it will change.
okay. Down?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hello again. Good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, I think that was a really great presentation by Joanna, and I need you all to just lower your expectations, because I'm a little bit nervous, and also this paper is a paper that I wrote my second semester of the BA, it is not a as well researched and worked on bachelor project as Joanna's. So that out of the way. So yeah, this is, I'm going to do a little presentation on a paper that I wrote for my American business class, second semester, about Hollywood's transformation, the impact of deregulation and streaming on the film and TV industry. So Hollywood is a lot more than just the glamorous movie stars we see on screen. It's a business that's constantly shaped by shifting policies and technologies. And yeah, today I'll take you on a journey through its transformation, starting with its golden age in the 1930s, and then up to today, the streaming-dominated landscape that we live in today. I gotta just figure out how I do this with the two. Sorry. Okay. Well, this shift from the golden age to the streaming landscape today, it's not just technological innovation. It's a result of profound changes in how Hollywood operates as a business. These changes have far-reaching implications, not only for the entertainment that we consume, but also and especially the industry professionals who create this entertainment for our pleasure. So over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll explore 3 key moments in Hollywood evolution. The 1948 Paramount Decree that ended the studio monopoly, and then the deregulation wave of the 1980s that brought corporate consolidation and today's streaming revolution. We'll look at the winners and losers and the challenges this industry faces as it adapts to a rapidly changing world. I'm going to move on to this. Okay. So a little bit of methodology, key concepts. So I use these 3 guiding concepts to analyze the transformation because it was American business class. So I focus on first vertical integration, when studios, they control every part of the filmmaking process from production to exhibition. And second, look at the deregulation, especially during the Reagan era, which lifted many, many restrictions and allowed for mega mergers and corporate consolidation. And third, the winner-takes-all economy, where a few dominant players like Netflix and Disney control most of the market. And then my research is grounded in the works of scholars like Jennifer Holt, the author of Empires of Entertainment, which explores media industries and the politics of deregulation from 1980 to 1996. And well, it actually all started with the article, the top middle one, the article by Daniel Bessner in Harper's Bazaar, titled The End of Hollywood as We Know It, which I read and really thought was very interesting. And that kind of spurred me on to, dive deeper and choose this as my topic. And some of the other books that I used and scholars. Okay, yeah. So Hollywood in the 1930s and 1940s was dominated by vertically integrated studio systems, where we had like studios, the big 5, studios, you can see over there, they controlled not only the films they produced, but also the distribution, and they owned most of the theaters where these films were shown. So they ensured they had like total control of the market. And they used practices like something called block booking, where they forced the few theaters that were not that were independent, that were not owned by them, to buy large bundles of film, making it impossible for independent producers and theaters to compete. They were kind of forced to buy, let's call them less desirable films along with the films they wanted and needed to show in their theaters. And this practice with these few monopolistic studios was, it all changed in 1948 with the Paramount Decree, which was a landmark antitrust case that dismantled this monopoly. The studios were required to sell their theaters, allowing independent producers and distributors to enter the market when this happened, which benefited the smaller studios and independent producers and filmmakers. So, which led to an era where, well, first you had the advent of television in the 50s and 60s, which also was new competition for the movie studios, because now suddenly people were watching movies at home, didn't go to the theaters as much, which kind of forced them to up their game a bit to get people to come to the theaters, maybe not keep just this sort of assembly line type of production they were doing, just sort of, making, let's say, shoddy films at times. So they kind of had to make fewer but better, higher quality films to get people to come to the theaters. And then, especially in the 60s, from the mid-60s and throughout the 70s, you had this era called New Hollywood. It's also been called the American New Wave, and other names like that, where independent American cinema really thrived. It's like, just, if you're a cinephile like me, this is kind of, I mean, for me anyways, American film history, this is the era. This is like all the great films. So a lot of creativity really booming in that era. Then comes the 80s and Ronald Reagan. So that things changed again. Significant shift with pro-business policies under President Reagan and deregulation efforts, like these policies here. I'm not going to bore you with go into too much detail, but it just kind of, the main point is that it allowed networks to, well, it led to growth of media conglomerates and a return to vertical integration through mergers and acquisitions. And we have this, I have this quote from media mogul Ted Turner. It kind of captures the aggressive expansion mindset of that era, when he said, you need to control everything. The game's over when they break you up, but in the meantime, you play to win, and you know you've won when the government stops you. Kind of says it all about the mentality and, of that era. I'll move on. Yeah, just some more examples here of the merger mania of the 80s and 90s. I have this one here. It's a fun one that I stole from Thomas. one of his classes, one of his slides. Yeah, just not quite up to date, but just kind of stark how we have, like, in 1983, the same 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies, and then to 2012, it's like 6 media giants control 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. Yeah. So we move on to the rise of streaming. The 2010s, that kind of marked another seismic shift, the rise of the streaming platforms. And you all know streaming. Unlike traditional studios, they operate direct-to-consumer models, cutting out distributors and theaters, and that kind of allows them to control every aspect of the viewing experience while monetizing through subscription fees rather than box office sales. And while this model has expanded global access to content and democratized viewing habits, it's also contributed to a winner-takes-all economy, where a handful of platforms now dominate the market, forcing smaller players and independent filmmakers to the margins. And additionally, the gig economy model used by streamers has created job instability for many, many industry professionals. Right. So, yeah, while the streaming giants reap enormous profits, the wealth isn't shared equally among those who actually create the content. And I have a journalist quote here, Olivia Knapp, who said that top streaming services earn a staggering $30 billion yearly, and the annual CEO salary for these top services has surged to roughly $1 billion. However, writers and actors have not been experiencing the same surge in their paychecks. Approximately 87% of the Screen Actors Guild members earns a yearly salary of less than $26,000, which does not even qualify them for health insurance through the union, which is just crazy. And that's she's even just talking about writers and actors. And there are so many workers that, help create the content that we all love, like the people who are just, the grips and rigs and lighting department and what have you. So many people who are even probably earning even less than actors and writers. So it's grim out there. And which is also, I mean, the pictures I've chosen here kind of shows this inequality and just disparity. You have a photo from the writers' strike we had this summer. Careers, not gigs, on one of the signs, and they're outside of one of Netflix's offices locations. And then on the other hand, I mean, I know this is maybe not quite, it would have been great if it had been, if I could have found as evocative a photo with maybe Ted Sarandos and well, Bob Iger and what they're called, the CEOs and something else. But here we have, these are media CEOs, or at least owner type founders. You have Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, the guy, I think, what's his name, Yul Brynner from Google, and in sort of a dick measuring contest with their yachts. Yeah, so just stark contrast. So the transformation of Hollywood has, yes, brought significant advancements. Streaming platforms have democratized content access, making films and shows available globally at an unprecedented scale. And it's also promoted diverse narratives with streaming services investing in international productions or more niche storytellers that might not have reached audiences through traditional studios. However, this transformation has not been without its drawbacks, and market consolidation has created a winner-takes-all economy where few dominant players control most of the industry, and the job stability has declined, with the gig economy becoming the norm rather than the exception. Right, so I kind of want to, I just looked this up and wanted to add a little looking ahead, because I just saw this article in the Hollywood Reporter right after Trump won the election with this with this headline, after Trump win, Hollywood prepares for mega mergers and volatility. So David Zaslav, you see here, the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO, he called the incoming administration an opportunity for consolidation for Hollywood. He's definitely very excited about this new era, where we'll probably see a lot more deregulation. And yeah. So that's it from me. Conclusion. So Hollywood's transformation from the studio system to streaming is a story of constant innovation driven by economic and technological forces. And each phase brought undeniable progress, but also a lot of challenges and cost, from the consolidation of market power to the precarious lives of the industry's workforce. So I guess the final question is, how can Hollywood embrace innovation while fostering a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone in its ecosystem, so that we don't end up with like film and TV that is only created by AI? I would definitely be sad to see that. Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you so much, Camilla. Our next presenters is actually a pair. Are they here? Oh, yeah, right. Come on down, guys. Our next presenters will talk about their experiences in the United States, I think, during this election cycle. Mathias Wingård Nielsen and Lucas Fausing were both in the United States for this election, talking to people, and they will share their knowledge with us. Hold on a second. Whenever you get some.
Okay.
Who wants this one?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna take this
Hold-
one.
Hold this, and I'll try and attach this.
Yeah, just attach as you like.
Maybe like that. Can you do a sound check? Just talk.
Ooh,
Not too
it's
fast.
working.
All right.
It's working brilliantly.
Thank you. You can go ahead and start while I get this working.
Okay. I guess we have to stand in here, so we're on the camera, right? Okay. Okay. And it's up there. Okay. It's a bit late, so I would like to start to ask you all a question. Does anyone in here know where this is? It's not in the US. Anyone? Just yell it. Exactly. It's the Port of Odense. And you just wonder, why do we have a picture of that in a presentation about US presidential election? And that is because it was here where we actually decided to go to the US, because the difference between dreams and reality is action. So we spoke for a while about going to the election. Yeah, and then last summer we gathered at the port to talk, and we decided to yeah, to go ahead. So that's why we want to show this for a start. And it's working.
So not to make it chronological, but on the first day of our trip, we went around to sightsee and all the stuff you have to see in Washington, D.C. And then on the backside of the White House, we witnessed in a park called Lafayette Square, we witnessed like a scene of protests, I guess you can call it, where we saw the guy here in the middle. It sounded like some anti-Semitic stuff he yelled, so a lot of extreme views were spoken here. But then we spoke to the lady on the left. She held a banner with a, yeah, she didn't like Project 2025, and she really thought that it would be the end of not democracy, but the end of the system as we know it today. And she also said that it would take approximately 30 years or so to get it to where it was before, which I found particularly fascinating, that you hear a lot about that this election, you know, you're not going to have a democracy after, but it was kind of a different viewpoint of the system being damaged in a way. And she also talked about the, what do you call it, the information war, where she said that if Trump says the sky is pink, his supporters say the sky is pink. But it was just really fascinating to hear it firsthand from someone who lives in the US. And another thing that stood out was this, how can you say, there's no real politics in the debate anymore. It's more like this existence of the system that's at stake for a lot of voters. So yeah, that was our first day, some of it at least.
Yeah, and this is my favorite slide. Okay, the diplomatic apparatus, Harry S. Truman Building, the State Department. This is the Foreign Service of the United States. It is the flagship of U.S. diplomacy. We were so lucky to go there on our second day due to the fantastic work from the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen. Thank you so much for that, Philip. It was great. So yeah, we had a tour inside the State Department by a U.S. official. He was very gentle, and we spoke about, yeah, of course, a lot of stuff. But what was very interesting was that when you enter the main hall, they have some memory signs for all the foreign officers who have died in service. And I can reveal you don't see that in the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at least. So, which leads to the next point. You can see patriotism in public service. In the US, it's really like you serve your country, similar to soldiers, but it's of course in two different ways. But it was very fascinating and interesting to hear the perceptions of the system. And then also concerning the business as usual. Of course, there will be a new president next year, but although he will, of course, have another approach to, at least a different approach to US foreign policy than Joe Biden. But still, it's a big apparatus and it's a big organization, so it's not as is everything changed completely. You will still have some things going on, yeah. So it's not as if it's a system that changed completely. But it was very interesting to hear how they work, what they do, and all sorts of things, and just to see a big building, much bigger than you would see in Denmark. And then also we were so lucky to see Secretary of State Antony Blinken coming straight out of an escalator. So yeah, close to a top US official. Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, so after our visit in the State Department, we thought that we would travel to Pennsylvania, about 3 to 4 hours away. First off, we thought that we would take the train, but then we realized that then we had to depend on the times of the train, and it was much cheaper to get a car, so you could say that's typical American with driving a car. On the way, we found out that Kamala Harris had a rally in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So we thought might as well go there and see what happens. And a lot of people were gathered outside to, I guess, catch a glimpse of her, which we did. As you can see, the SUV out of the parking lot. And we spoke to the people that stood there, and their concerns, two people on the left, they were pretty concerned about climate. And guy here, Patrick, on the right, his particular point was that he wouldn't vote person over politics. So he said he didn't like Trump, but he liked his policies more. Which leads me to another person we met who's not on the slide, was an older lady who asked him if you're not gonna vote Democratic, please make your daughter vote Democratic. And then he said, like, well, she's the same as me, she wouldn't vote person over politics. And then the lady, she replied that, okay, then you must have poisoned her brain with your thoughts, which really stood out to me, that the rhetoric there, I don't know if they knew each other, I don't think they did. But the rhetoric that we experienced there were kind of hostile, which just speaks to the whole democracy at stake debate I talked about earlier. And the guy, Patrick here, he worked 3 jobs at a lawnmower company and as an Uber driver, and the last job he didn't mention. But it just really tells you that working 3 jobs isn't sustainable for people to have a normal life. And that's probably part of the reason why he voted for Trump, because, yeah, 3 jobs is just way too much for anyone to work for a week.
All right. So after the rally ended and Vice President Harris has left, we heard a man yelling, now it's about knocking doors. So I started to run up to him and asked him if we could go. He turned out to be a regional organizer for the Democratic Party. And he's the one, as you can see there. So we followed him and we knocked some doors in Allentown. And it was very, very interesting because that is very, very different from how politics works in Denmark. In Denmark, you just receive a letter from the state. You go to your local place, you exchange your letter for a list with candidates. You put an X on it in a box, and then you go home. But in the US, it's very different, and it was very interesting to see how it works. So what he did was he had an app called Minivan. We tried to download it, we couldn't. In that app, they can see a map of all the houses in a certain neighborhood, and they have put some yellow dots on the houses they want to knock on. So it's very structured. And then what they do is they, of course, knock the door, and then they reveal where they're from. He said, well, my name is Mohammed. I represent the Kamala Harris campaign. Are you going to vote? Asking such questions. Very structured and very, very interesting. And then after the talk with people, they update the information inside the app, so they make sure it's always updated with information about who they voted for last time, who they're voting for this time. Are there other people in the house as well? Will they vote the same or will they not? So it was very interesting. But what we also saw, and that was quite funny, to be honest, Pennsylvania was picked out as the most important swing state. So you saw attention from each parties everywhere. You saw campaigns with Trump, you saw campaigns with Harris, you heard advertisement in the radio, you heard everything everywhere. And it was really clear to see, this was the day before the election day, so it was really clear to see that people were fed up with the information and all the attention towards their certain neighborhood. So we saw some houses we walked through where the plan was to get them to speak, and we saw lights in there, and when he knocked, they didn't open. So it was a clear sign that people were fed up. And I also asked him, okay, he had canvassed for 2 months at this time. So he's been running for a long time. And I asked him, do you have a feeling that people are fed up? He said, yes, they are. They certainly are fed up. So that was something you could also see, which of course, it makes great sense if you have people knocking your door each day for 2 months, asking you, who are you voting for? What are your concerns? How's the cat? Okay, nice light. Bye-bye. Well, of course, everyone would be tired. So yeah, but it was so interesting to see, especially because it was not something we've planned to witness. It was just because he were yelling, and the US is the land of opportunity, so it's just about asking, and he was so friendly. But it was a great engaging and really, really, really interesting to witness how it works, the so-called ground game.
Yep. So this is election day. For me, at least, it started out really, really early. You can see me on the left, looking really, really tired. I had an exam from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Danish time. So that would be 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. US time. So I thought, might as well get it out of the world. So I woke up at 2:30, made a cup of instant coffee, and then just went about the exam. So you guys, you went out with some university students. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I can, we spoke with some students from the George Washington University, the Elliott School of International Affairs. Great people. Some of them were US citizens and others were from Europe. But it was very interesting. The university was locked down, due to the election, so people could vote, and also because they had taken some considerations concerning security, which was sad to hear, but they had. So it was closed, so we couldn't go in there, but we drank some coffee near the World Bank, and we walked past the White House as well. But it was nice to speak with them and to hear their thoughts.
Yeah, and I stayed home to sleep, so that's why I didn't say it. On election day, we went to a bar, as you can see here on the right. We thought there might be a little more, or not as much silent. Well, I mean, there was music, but people didn't really, not much happened. And we thought they went home pretty early, 9, 10. We thought there might be a party, might be some voices. Not really. Might be that they had work the next day and they could see where the election was headed. But a little different than our expectations, at least. So we went home at 10, bought some pizza, and then went home to see the rest on ABC News. And we thought we could stay up until they called Pennsylvania, which we couldn't. And then we went to bed. So a little anticlimactic election day, but it was election day. So what more can you ask for, I guess?
All right, the final part. As you all know, Donald John Trump won the election, and the scenes from Howard University on election night, where Kamala Harris was supposed to hold her election party, was canceled, and people fled quite early. The day after, she was then going to give her remark speech at the same place, not at the same time, but at the same place. And we went there, as you can see, and it was interesting for many reasons. Well, I mean, you don't have to be a Democrat to realize how disappointing the result was for anyone except for the Republicans. And it was also clear to see on election night, since they fled from the university and went home very disappointed. But at this day, this was 16 hours after. It seemed as if for a short time that this dissatisfaction has been parked in the background, and people were really supportive, and a lot of people came to Howard. Actually, it was not filled totally up, but at least close to, and people were talking. We would maybe have assumed that it would have been totally silenced and people would have been very, very sad. Of course, some people cried, but they were still talking. Life was still going on. The sun was still rising and going down, so to speak. So, and maybe they weren't that surprised. That may also be a reason. But yeah, you could still feel people were really supportive. And when Harris finally went on to give a speech, people were really yelling and they were screaming Kamala and clapping and all sorts of things. And it was, I mean, it was nice to see that they still supported her, because it was, of course, very disappointing. But they still tried to support her and really gather around the first colored women to run for president, for the presidency, for a big party at least. Yeah, so that was very interesting. And her speech, which is the last thing we're going to talk about, was also very uplifting. I mean, for me, a person who loves the American ideals about freedom, liberty, all these things, it was very, very, it was actually touching to hear a candidate who have been into a very, very tough campaign and also a very short campaign, really being able to, less than 1 day after a very disappointing result, going in and just smiling and really trying to encourage people to fight on and not just go down and say, well, the fight is over. No, it's not. She spoke about that, yeah, you may lose doing your road to win. So it was very encouraging, and people were, as said, very supportive, and it was nice to witness. Yeah. So of course, what now? Well, you have a new administration in January. It will be the last time Trump will be president. At least that's how we see it now. Things may change, you never know, but that may be how it is. So yeah, I mean, I think both parties have to recalculate moving on to the next election, because there will be a Republican Party after Donald Trump, after MAGA, and the Democrats as well will have to, of course, yeah, rethink things and how to campaign, how to many things. But it was very uplifting to witness that people were able to support the candidate within a very short time frame after a very disappointing result. So on that note, thank you for listening. Hvad siger du? Du skal bare slukke den. Ja, den her virker stadig.
Don't turn it off.
Don't turn it off.
Jeg er bare muted.
Tak. Tusind tak. Okay, so thank you so much to Mathias Melser Vingård Nielsen and Lukas Rode Fausing. I was wondering if people would like to ask a couple of questions to all the people, all the students who have just presented. So maybe we should just set off like a couple of minutes for that. So if Camilla and Johanna will just come down also, and then we can just pass this microphone back around. So anyone who's got some questions and comments for any of the presenters? Philip, you got a comment?
Yes, sure. Thanks for Joanna. I wanted to know if you compared some of the other major sports like baseball and soccer or international football, how they compared, and also if you looked at hypermasculine sports outside the US to compare, like rugby, how that's played in Australia and everything. And then for the two of you, I wonder if you considered going to a really, really Republican stronghold to watch the results, and I'll bet it would have been a very different atmosphere at the bar, you know, in some place like that. But
All right, I'll start. So I only really looked at US sports. So I only really made comparisons between the 5 major, or actually I made comparisons between the 4 major sports leagues. So I examined the NFL, the NBA, the NBL, and the NHL. So those are the 4 groups that I analyzed. The way I did this was that I researched and researched and researched for painful hours, and I tried to collect as accurately the entire number of gay athletes in all of these major 4 sports, and handcrafted the table in the appendix until 4 a.m, which is, again, painful. It was so when I started researching this topic, this was almost 5 years ago now, and there was little to no available data on any of what I researched. So I had to handcraft a lot of the tables that I made the statistics from. So I uphold the right that it might not be 100% accurate. As far as rugby goes, that's a great comparison, and thank you so much for bringing it up. I might look into it in the future if I decide to continue on with this, but I do agree that rugby is a similarly aggressive sport in terms of how the players present themselves and how the game itself is played. And yeah, that might be a really good basis for another thesis for anyone. It's up to grabs.
I think we considered when we were at the Odense Harbor that
Famous harbor.
very famous. None of us had seen the U.S. institutions, White House, Supreme Court, Congress. So I guess we thought that we wanted to see that to fulfill that the dream, you can say. And DC being a Democrat stronghold, it's kind of hard to be at a Republican bar. Exactly. But yeah, we could have done that. We could have gone to Pennsylvania, someplace where there probably would have been a bar where people didn't go home at 10. But yeah.
But we saw a person at the Mayflower Club with a MAGA hat. Yeah, one person. Yeah, and people were looking very strange at him. Let's say that. Yeah. But he maintained to stay there in peace, and that was nice.
But there was also a person with a MAGA hat at our election night event.
All
I think
right.
it was more of a joke, but just.
Okay.
It was.
Yes.
Okay, hi guys. I want to ask Johanna, considering that you said the most recent openly homosexual football player was received well by the audience, but retired soon after, do you think that the football viewing American public are more ready to see a homosexual football star than the NFL organization itself?
Hold on with your answer.
Okay, yeah, okay, it's working. Thank you for the question. I do think, I do tend to agree with this opinion. I think that the public is a lot more open to welcome more gay players in the NFL than the organization itself is. I don't have data available just off the top of my head to answer accurately, but I do tend to think that the league owners and the team owners tend to lean more conservative. And I think that their opinions and how they construe and how they welcome gay players within the teams might play a key role in this decision. So Nassib was welcomed very openly by the general public. So I don't think that there is a fear of a lot losing their job anymore, especially because one of the aspects that I considered with this question was, would the league fire someone because they would be afraid that if the public don't receive the gay person and the gay player on the team well, they would be losing out on revenue, and they don't want to risk that. That did not happen with Nassib. So I'm confident to say that I think it's not up to the public, it's up to the organization.
Any other questions from the room? We have Gina Kaysen.
Thank you so much for all of those. I have a question for Camila as well as Johanna. Camila, I was wondering how much, not just streaming, but the entry of not previously like consumer media companies changed the landscape, because it's not just Netflix, their business is films, even though they're streaming, but someone like Apple or Amazon that has so much revenue that was such a big deal in the last strikes because they're not dependent upon making media to have a company that makes money. So how you think the entry of other types of industry players into the media landscape affects some of what the calculations around streaming. And then for Johanna, just the dates struck me between 75 and later NASA, how much the intervening AIDS crisis in such a physical contact sport and the paranoia over the AIDS crisis, particularly in the US context, maybe delayed what could have started in say 75, but then the intervening 80s and 90s and the unwarranted hysteria over that maybe played a factor in players' willingness to come out.
Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Hello. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great point and a great question. This was not something I dove into in my paper, but it is something I have also just for my own interest been following. And I think definitely the fact that there are companies such as Apple and Amazon as well, I think would be the big ones, who don't make like the majority of their money or their revenue from streaming. It has like drastically disrupted the industry because they are able to just throw billions after like content and hiring big stars and names, but they don't really have to make their money back, which obviously kind of disrupts the whole landscape. But I'm not really that much of an expert on that, so I don't know if I can go much deeper than that. Sorry.
I have one. This is a great question that you asked me. Thank you so much. I would like to echo Camilla. I also did not consider this specific question during my thesis work, but I'm assuming that you're asking because I mentioned that Jerry Smith passed away from AIDS complications. So what I would think would be an appropriate answer to this question is that there is a possibility that they also considered this, but because anecdotally, a lot of the NFL players have enjoyed the company of sex workers. Unfortunately, these diseases, these venereal diseases and STDs do come up in those contexts as well. It is difficult to originate and put one thing to another in that context. I would imagine that this would have been a fear. But again, unless you're openly admitting to be a gay person in this context, and unless you're made fun of or you're bullied and ostracized by your teammates for this reason, I don't think there is space to assume that this would even be a fear.
All right. Any other question?
Yeah, hi again. So this one is for the guys group. I want to ask, considering what you have learned from talking to Americans and doing campaign work on ground, do you think, or do you have any idea as to what the Democrats can or need to do in order to win back some of those swing states in the North that you visited, in which they have previously been kind of secure in winning?
Yes. The most simple answer would be to, in my opinion at least, pick Josh Shapiro as the next presidential candidate. His seat as governor is up for grabs in the next midterm, which would mean that if they already plan now, they will be able to have a new one campaigning for that seat while he can prepare to campaign as president. If they do that, I think they have a great chance, at least of winning Pennsylvania, where he's very popular. He's a moderate, and he will probably be able to convince other voters in swing states as well. So if I was a strategist man for the Democratic Party, I would advise that, but I am not. So they will have to decide themselves.
And I thought of a point Niels brought up, I think some months ago. I can't remember what it was for, but you said that the Democrats pick certain political topics that doesn't work that well with people in the political middle. But so I think the Democrats really need to really point out for the middle American what they can achieve if they vote for the Democrats, which I think they haven't really done, where they have probably been a little further out to the left than they would have been or would have liked. So yeah, that's what I think. I really think they have to really focus on the middle voter next time around.
Yes, second round. Because a very concrete example of what they also need to be aware of, I mean that's something each candidate need to be aware of. Consider who you're up against. Because if you look at the situation where Donald Trump held a rally in Madison Square Garden and he had a comedian saying something very stupid about Puerto Rico, usually you would assume it would be a very, very bad case for the Trump campaign. Suddenly you had a president saying something not that good as well. And then suddenly in the next moment you had Donald Trump rolling up in a garbage truck saying, "How you like my garbage truck?" So he's so good at changing the narrative and controlling the narrative, especially in the media. And if you're up against that as a party, you need to adjust to that. And that means a lot of things, but that is also something you need to consider. You need to adjust yourself to your opponent.
All right, excellent. One last question, maybe? Anybody in the room got something? Maybe Jan has something.
Okay, I think I don't have more questions, but thank you so much, all of you, and a big round of applause. Okay, in closing this festival, just let me say a few words of thanks. I would like to thank all the speakers, Dr. Shelley Fisher-Fishkin, Dr. Jim Fishkin of Stanford University, Dr. Nicole Hemmer of Vanderbilt, Dr. Gina Kazan of Georgia State, all the other contributors to the festivals, including the alumni who spoke yesterday, including the jobs panel yesterday, and including today, Johanna Laura Beres, Camilla Gudmundsen Holmgren, Mathias Schmelzer Vingård Nielsen, Lukas Rode Fausing. This festival has been student-centered. And you students have played a pivotal role in organizing it. I'd like to thank our 3 student assistants without whom this festival would have been impossible. Johanna Beres again, Helena Korsholm Møller, and Sebastian Erlandsen. Also the students who introduced our speakers, August Bloch Münster, Vicky Bodnar, and Alexander Frederiksen. Likewise, I'd like to emphasize that the contributions by co-organizer Sabine Ensbjerg have been invaluable, as have those by the planning committee that consisted of members of the faculty at the Center for American Studies. So let me also thank everyone who participated in the fun, and last but not least, a big thanks goes to the US Embassy in Copenhagen and also to SDU for sponsoring this event. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
That's it. We done. Another great festival coming to an end. Thank you all for coming out. Have a safe trip home.